It's Debatable with Mark Gray here on MLBbro.com.
What's the deal, boys and girls? With the Man Ram, I'm the OG. And Man Ram, you and I were talking in our show prep about the Dave Parker piece that we have on the website that I did for Black in the Day. And I think we both recognize just how polarizing he was as a player. Now he finally gets his call to the Hall of Fame. I guess you could say it's better late than never, right?
Right?
But there's still several people out there who are polarizing and haven't gotten into the Hall of Fame, and we don't revere them. So I'm just wondering, of all the bros who were polarizing figures whose stuff off the field may have kept them out of Cooperstown, what's the most glaring omission to you?
To me, it's Albert Bell. I mean, anybody who watched baseball in the 90s, you could argue, besides Griffey and Bonds, he was the third best player in the 90s. I mean, he completely dominated the decade, was a part of one of the great teams to never win a championship in that 95 Indians lineup. He, uh, wrongfully, wrongfully did not win the MVP in 1995. 50 home runs, 50 doubles. I mean, I think one of two or three players to ever do that. I think it was only the first player to do that, if I'm not mistaken. The stat geeks in the comments or whatever, let us know.
Right.
But had a tremendous transcendent season, man. To me, Albert Bell, listen, this ain't about whether you bring him home to date your daughter. This isn't about do you want him as a neighbor. We're talking about on the field. On the field, did this player dominate at his position? Did he dominate for an 8 to 10 year period? Can you write the history of baseball without the name of this person? And I don't think you can do that for Albert Bell. To me, he was a tremendous, tremendous right-handed hitter. One of the best ever. And I think that he has been excluded from any Cooperstown conversation, and I just don't know why.
Well, I think that there are two players that stand out to me. And they both were cut in the same ilk, and they played way before time. A lot of the folks that are checking us out right now, Barry Bonds' dad, Bobby, was all that. He was everything, y'all. If I could use a basketball analogy, he'd be somewhere like Victor Wembanyama. He could do it all. You could not stop Bobby Bonds. The only thing that stopped Bobby Bonds would have been Bobby Bonds himself. And then, there was the climate of the times where America was coming to grips with publicly accepting great black athletes in American society because they had to, because it was coming into their households on TV sets. So
and great black athletes being themselves, being authentically black.
Right, authentically. Yes. And one thing about Bobby Bonds, he was authentic. And some people may say he was authentic to a fault, but he was a real dude who was a 5 tool ball player. We talking about 30 for 30 before it became a TV show. You know what I'm saying? So Bobby Bonds to me stands out, but in the same regard, I can say the very same thing about Dick Allen with the Phillies. I mean, those two guys kind of go hand in hand on either side of the plate, if you will, from a time where they did it big, they became social enigmas, not necessarily for juicing up on steroids and stuff like that, but just for standing with their back up high and defying stereotypes, and they wanted their respect. And I think those are the kind of enigmatic figures that aren't in the Hall of Fame. I guess you could point to Barry Bonds for the alleged.
That's a whole nother. We be here for 2 hours talking about Barry because we all know
when you talk about Barry, you have to talk about him in the same context as Albert Bell from that umbrella standpoint, because they were contemporaries. They
Absolutely
put up numbers that were comparable to each other during a given time, though Bonds was doing it at such a great level, him and Sosa at the time. So it's a real interesting dynamic when you start looking at how history records you in the filter of what you do on the field versus what happens off.
and how the game has changed, right? Because I feel like a lot of these guys were also victims of of baseball in the old way of thinking. You know, everybody always bags on the new way of thinking of baseball, of sabermetrics and advanced stats, right? Well, one of the things that I think advanced stats has helped is helped highlight some players that maybe got lost throughout history, right? Like we talk about Dick Allen, we talk about Dave Parker, we talk about
the Negro League players.
Exactly. Those guys that probably were overshadowed by the bigger than life, larger than life figures in the game. You know, I mean, like take a guy like Dick Allen. Those guys were overshadowed by Mays, by Aaron. They played in that same era. So now having the sabermetrics, having the advanced stats to look at, like, oh God, this guy had a 800 OPS. So this guy led the league in WAR for a few years. Like numbers that weren't available to the you and I's of the world back in the day.
Right.
Like, and having a different perspective to look at these guys' numbers and look at their guys' credentials.
But that's going to be a thing to watch, especially
Absolutely.
as far as bros going to the Hall of Fame down the line. For the man, I'm the OG. That's debatable for this week.
For more right now, go to MLBbro.com.